The aroma of stale coffee and the distant rumble of city traffic were the familiar accompaniments to Amelia Thorne's pre-dawn ritual. In the cramped kitchen of her modest apartment, she moved with practiced efficiency, her fingers expertly mending a loose button on Leo's school shirt, her quiet dignity a stark contrast to the threadbare reality of her existence. Amelia, in her late 30s, was a single mother to two bright, energetic children, Leo, 10, and Chloe, 7. She juggled multiple low-paying jobs, waitressing at a diner by day, cleaning offices by night, each one a desperate attempt to keep their small world afloat. Unbeknownst to most, she carried the quiet burden of a past trauma. Estranged from her once wealthy family, the Sterlings, after a devastating fire years ago had destroyed their prominent textile factory. Her ruthless industrialist father, Silas Sterling, had publicly blamed her supposed carelessness before disowning her entirely, banishing her from his life and fortune. In a subtle act of defiance, Amelia used her late mother's maiden name, Thorne, deliberately hiding her true family name, Sterling, from public knowledge, a shield against a painful legacy. Her days were a meticulous dance against scarcity. Meals were carefully rationed, every spoonful of oatmeal, every slice of bread accounted for. Leo and Chloe's clothes, though worn, were always impeccably clean, a testament to Amelia's unwavering determination to provide a semblance of normalcy. Late nights were spent hunched over a worn ledger, balancing meager budgets, her brow furrowed with the constant, subtle anxiety of making ends meet. Yet through it all, she maintained a quiet strength, her unwavering focus on protecting her children from the harsh realities that constantly nipped at their heels. She found comfort in small acts of nurturing, like tending a tiny, resilient potted plant on their windowsill, its stubborn bloom a mirror to her own enduring spirit. One blustery afternoon, rushing home from her waitressing shift, Amelia witnessed a small tragedy unfold outside their apartment building. Her elderly neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, a sweet but frail woman, tripped, sending her bag of groceries scattering across the grimy pavement. Apples rolled into the gutter, eggs smashed, milk cartons split. Despite her own hurried schedule and bone-deep exhaustion, Amelia didn't hesitate. She immediately stopped, ignoring the impatient honk of a passing car. With swift, gentle movements, she gathered all the scattered items, meticulously wiping down what could be salvaged, and then, with a reassuring smile, helped the grateful Mrs. Henderson carry the heavy bags all the way up 3 flights of stairs to her apartment. She refused any reward, her innate kindness and compassion shining through her weary facade. Subtle threads of mystery were woven into Amelia's quiet life, hints of the turbulent past she kept buried. She occasionally touched a faded, jagged scar on her left forearm, a remnant of the factory fire, a physical reminder of the day her world had irrevocably changed. Hidden deep within a rarely used chest in her bedroom was a small antique wooden box. It was intricately carved, its surface smooth and dark with age. Inside, nestled among a few yellowed letters, lay a single tarnished silver locket. It was engraved with a unique, almost archaic symbol. A stylized textile loom, a family crest known only to the descendants of the Sterling family's earliest artisanal ancestors. Beside it, tucked into a hidden compartment, was a coded letter from her late mother, its elegant script hinting at a hidden legacy and a profound injustice, urging Amelia to seek the truth beneath the ashes. Amelia instinctively recoiled from any news about Sterling Industries or its current CEO, subconsciously flinching from the name Sterling, a bitter taste in her mouth. Her children, occasionally, with the innocent curiosity of youth, would ask about their grandpa on her father's side, but Amelia would always change the subject, her eyes clouding with a pain too deep to share. The shadow of demolition. The precarious stability Amelia had painstakingly built for herself and her children was suddenly, brutally shattered. Their dilapidated apartment building, a place they called home despite its worn edges, became the target of a swift, ruthless urban renewal project. The eviction notice arrived, cold and impersonal, tacked to their door alongside identical notices for every other tenant. It granted residents only a few weeks to vacate, offering paltry compensation that was laughably insufficient to secure new housing in the city's increasingly inflated rental market. This immediate, terrifying threat jeopardized Amelia's precarious stability and, more agonizingly, her children's fragile sense of security. They faced the terrifying prospect of homelessness, a fate Amelia had fiercely fought to keep at bay. She appealed to the building's management, then to the property developers, but her pleas met only with stonewalling and indifferent bureaucratic jargon. The orchestrator of their impending doom was Mr. Silas Sterling, the ruthless, cold-hearted CEO of Sterling Industries, a major real estate and development conglomerate. He was Amelia's estranged father, though he believed Amelia, who meticulously used her late mother's maiden name, Thorne, to hide her true identity, was long out of his life, a forgotten mistake, banished from his meticulously controlled world. Silas Sterling was a man driven by insatiable greed and an obsession with maximizing profit, viewing tenants as mere numbers on a spreadsheet, expendable obstacles in his relentless pursuit of wealth. He personally owned the dilapidated apartment building, deliberately neglecting its maintenance to hasten its deterioration, creating a pretext to force out its low-income residents for profitable redevelopment. He viewed Amelia and her family, along with all the other tenants, as insignificant nuisances, utterly unaware of their true relationship. His sole focus was on his perfect son, Julian, his preferred heir, whom he was grooming to take over his sprawling, ethically questionable empire. The final, non-negotiable eviction notice arrived like a death knell, delivered by a grim-faced property manager. It was brutal, dismissive, and utterly devoid of empathy, explicitly blaming tenant negligence for the building's disrepair, a thinly veiled insult to its struggling residents, a further twist of the knife for Amelia. Desperate, Amelia knew she had one last impossible shot. She would appeal directly to the man responsible, the cold, powerful entity behind the eviction. She visited the lavish corporate office of Sterling Industries, a towering edifice of glass and steel that mocked her worn clothes and weary demeanor. She endured humiliation from his imperious staff, who saw her only as another, struggling tenant pleading her case. She was made to wait for hours, dismissed with condescending smiles, her pleas treated with open disdain. Finally, after a humiliating exchange, she was utterly rejected by Mr. Sterling himself, who, without a flicker of recognition, saw her only as another insignificant pleading tenant. He mocked her naivete and lack of financial acumen, his words cutting her to the core. "Sentimentality has no place in business, Ms. Thorne," he had stated, his voice a cold, resonant rumble. "Your building is unprofitable. It will be demolished." This act of callous disregard from a man she now knew was merely a ruthless landlord, but who was, in truth, her own father, marked the chilling point of no return. The pain of his dismissal, the profound irony of being discarded by her own blood, ignited a quiet, burning resolve within her. She knew, with chilling certainty, that she must fight. Not just for her children's home, not just for her dignity, but for justice against the man who had abandoned her, falsely accused her, and now sought to cast her and her children onto the streets. The fire of her determination, long suppressed, now flared, ready to consume the shadows of his deceit. The spark in the ashes. Amelia's frantic search for alternative housing in the city's brutally competitive rental market proved futile. Every phone call was met with inflated prices, every viewing with discouraging competition. Desperation gnawed at her, a cold, bitter taste. She saw the quiet fear in Leo's eyes, the way Chloe clung to her a little tighter at night. She knew she couldn't give up. She decided to make a public appeal, hoping to leverage the growing community outrage against the urban renewal project. At a local community meeting, her voice, trembling at first, but growing resolute with every word, spoke of the unfairness of the eviction, the plight of families like hers. Her story, raw and heartfelt, garnered local media attention, but no immediate solutions for her family's looming homelessness. The clock on the wall of her apartment ticked mercilessly towards their eviction date. Mr. Silas Sterling, her father, remained utterly dismissive of the public outcry. Alerted to the small news reports featuring his estranged daughter's plight, he scoffed. In a local news interview, he arrogantly dismissed Amelia's appeal as sentimental nonsense, subtly blaming her and other tenants for the building's disrepair. "These individuals," he stated with a cold, condescending smile, "have neglected their properties. We are merely clearing blight for progress." He used his considerable influence to silence critical media, ensuring that the narrative remained skewed in his favor. He remained completely unaware of Amelia's true identity, convinced she was merely a forgotten, insignificant tenant, a Ms. Thorne with a common grievance, secure in his belief that his disowned daughter was long out of his life, a forgotten failure. Just as Amelia was at her lowest, feeling utterly defeated, staring at the final eviction notice, her old, rarely used burner phone buzzed with a cryptic, anonymous call. She hesitated, her finger hovering over the screen. A formal voice, calm and authoritative, spoke on the other end. "Ms. Amelia Thorne? My name is Mr. Dawson. I am a solicitor, handling a most unusual estate." Amelia's heart leapt. Dawson. She vaguely remembered him from her childhood, a quiet, impeccably dressed man who occasionally visited her mother. "My mother," Amelia whispered, a tremor in her voice. "Indeed, Ms. Thorne," Mr. Dawson continued, his voice precise. "Your late mother's will, long suppressed by external forces, has been discreetly unsealed. It is being read this afternoon at her private residence. It contains provisions of significant and rather unexpected inheritance." He stressed the urgency and the secretive nature of the reading, ensuring Mr. Sterling remained unaware. "I believe you possess an antique wooden box, intricately carved? Your mother indicated it is the key to her wishes." With trembling hands, Amelia retrieved the antique wooden box from its hidden place. It was smooth, dark with age, and felt surprisingly heavy. Inside, nestled beneath her mother's will and the tarnished silver locket, she discovered a hidden compartment. With a click, a false bottom sprung open, revealing a meticulously preserved cache of documents, a series of financial ledgers, coded spreadsheets, and detailed records related to their textile factory. These documents, unseen for years, revealed a horrifying truth that slammed into Amelia with the force of a physical blow. The devastating factory fire, the one Silas Sterling had publicly blamed on her supposed carelessness, was not an accident. It was an act of corporate sabotage, meticulously orchestrated by Sterling Industries to claim a massive insurance payout and eliminate a rising competitor. The ledgers proved her father's direct involvement, outlining his hidden accounts, his shell corporations, and his decades of lies. But the documents held another astonishing revelation. Her mother, secretly anticipating her husband's betrayal, had, over years, shrewdly amassed a vast personal fortune through ethical investments, entirely unknown even to Silas Sterling. The will confirmed Amelia as the sole heir to this hidden wealth, including a controlling stake in the original textile factory's intellectual property, which, through her mother's foresight, had quietly become incredibly valuable. The subtle, elegant family crest, the stylized textile loom engraved on the tarnished locket now perfectly matched the official seal on her mother's will, a chilling confirmation of her bloodline and her rightful inheritance. Amelia clutched the locket, its cool metal a tangible link to her mother's fierce intelligence and quiet defiance. She now knew the full, bitter truth about the fire and about her father's profound, calculated betrayal. Her children, her humble home, her very dignity, all had been threatened by the man who was, by blood, her father. Meanwhile, Mr. Silas Sterling, engrossed in his real estate empire, saw Amelia's family name, Thorne, in the small news reports about the community meeting. He dismissed it as a mere coincidence, a common surname, still secure in his belief that his disowned daughter was a forgotten, insignificant failure, incapable of ever challenging his power. He had no idea that the struggling single mother he had so casually dismissed was, in fact, the heir to a vast ethical fortune, armed with irrefutable proof of his decades of lies, and about to reclaim her destiny and his company. The stage was now set for the ultimate familial confrontation, the boardroom battle. The air in the opulent, intimidating boardroom of Sterling Industries was thick with the scent of polished wood and unspoken ambition. Mr. Silas Sterling, seated at the head of the long, gleaming table, projected an aura of absolute control. He had called this emergency board meeting ostensibly to address the urban renewal project delays caused by the recent public outcry from the apartment building. His true intent, however, was far more ruthless: to ram through the demolition plans, finalize the sale of the land to a new, eager investor, and definitively cut ties with the problem residents, including the Ms. Thorne who had so inconveniently garnered local media attention. The room was filled with his hand-picked board members, men and women whose loyalty was bought, their expressions a mix of calculated deference and quiet avarice. Just as Silas Sterling began his presentation, his voice resonating with cold authority, the heavy boardroom doors swung open. Amelia Thorne, her simple, clean clothes a stark contrast to the bespoke suits and designer dresses, walked in. Her posture was straight, her gaze unwavering, her presence commanding an undeniable, if bewildered, attention. She didn't just enter. She strode in with a quiet, undeniable authority that silenced the murmurs and drew every eye. She was alone, confronting her estranged father and his powerful, complicit board. Silas Sterling froze mid-sentence, his eyes narrowing in furious recognition. He saw Ms. Thorne, the troublesome tenant he had so casually dismissed, now standing in his inner sanctum. His face contorted with rage, a flush creeping up his neck. "What is the meaning of this?" he thundered, slamming his fist on the table. "Security! Get this woman out of here, immediately!" He rose from his seat, pointing a furious finger at Amelia. "This is a private corporate meeting. You are trespassing. And you," he spat, his voice dripping with venom, addressing his board members, "are witnessing the lengths to which a disowned, disloyal daughter will go to disrupt legitimate business. This woman is a failure, a disgrace to the Sterling name." He belittled her, attempting to dismiss her as a madwoman, confident that his public denouncement would utterly discredit her. But Amelia stood her ground, her gaze meeting his, calm and resolute. She felt the insult, the bitter sting of his words, but they held no power over her now. The truth, hidden in the antique wooden box she carried, was her shield. Silas, increasingly agitated, glanced at his watch. He had a major investor waiting to finalize the land deal by the end of the day, a multi-million-dollar transaction that would cement his legacy. He needed to conclude this meeting quickly, have Amelia removed, and push through the demolition approval. The ticking clock of the pending deal added immense pressure, amplifying his fury and his desperation to remove her. Unbeknownst to Silas and his complicit board, a vital part of Amelia's plan was already in motion. Mr. Dawson, the loyal lawyer and estranged relative who had unsealed her mother's will, her helper, had discreetly ensured that this emergency board meeting was live-streamed to a select, trusted audience. A few independent journalists, known for their integrity, and several key ethical city council members had been given a secure, anonymous link. They watched, their faces grim, as Silas Sterling, oblivious, continued his tirade. Every word of his public humiliation of Amelia, every dismissive gesture, every chilling accusation was being captured, providing the perfect prelude for the coming showdown. The stage was set, the audience was waiting, and the empire built on lies was about to be exposed from within. The heir unmasked, the empire crumbles. The opulent boardroom of Sterling Industries, minutes ago a stage for Silas Sterling's unbridled fury, crackled with a palpable silence. Amelia stood firm, her gaze unwavering, even as the security guards, summoned by her father, moved in. Silas, his face contorted in a mask of rage, pointed a shaking finger at her. "Drag her out! She's a trespasser! A madwoman!" he shrieked, his voice losing its customary control. He reached for the heavy gavel on the table, desperate to regain some semblance of authority. "Stop!" Amelia's voice, though not loud, resonated with an undeniable clarity that cut through the impending chaos. She held up her mother's will, its pages a stark contrast to the boardroom's glittering opulence. "I am not a trespasser, Father. I am Amelia Sterling, and this is my mother's will." Her words, a quiet declaration of identity, landed like a thunderclap. Silas froze, his hand midair. "Forgery!" he sputtered, his eyes wide with a desperate dawning fear. "It's a forgery! My wife's will was long settled." He waved a dismissive hand at the security guards. "Get her out!" Just as the guards hesitated, Amelia moved with a swift, decisive grace. She reached into the antique wooden box she carried, pulling out the tarnished silver locket with the stylized textile loom crest. She held it up, its archaic symbol glinting under the boardroom lights. Then, with a click, she revealed the hidden compartment within the box itself, pulling out a thick sheaf of meticulously preserved documents, financial ledgers, coded spreadsheets, and detailed records. "This is not a forgery, Father," Amelia stated, her voice now ringing with profound authority, each word a hammer blow against his lies. "This is my mother's true legacy, and these," she laid the ledgers onto the gleaming mahogany table, "these are the meticulous records that prove the devastating factory fire was no accident. It was an act of corporate sabotage, orchestrated by Sterling Industries to claim insurance money and eliminate competition." Her gaze, sharp and unwavering, pierced his. "You destroyed our family's heritage, Father. You accused me of carelessness. But you were the arsonist. You were the fraud." She detailed with chilling precision the specifics of his decades of lies, the hidden accounts, the shell corporations used to siphon funds, the manipulated insurance claims. She outlined how her mother, far from being a passive victim, had secretly and brilliantly amassed a vast personal fortune through ethical investments, anticipating his betrayal. And through a complex web of legal maneuvers orchestrated by her, anticipating this very moment, Amelia concluded, her voice rising with undeniable power. "I now hold a controlling stake in Sterling Industries, meaning, Father, I am your new CEO." The very Sterling Industries crest, displayed prominently on the boardroom wall, subtly matched the crest on her locket, a chilling irony that underscored her unassailable claim. Silas Sterling, witnessing the irrefutable evidence, the locket, and his daughter's unwavering resolve, crumpled. His face drained of all color, his skin taking on a sickly gray hue. He gasped, clutching his chest, his eyes wide with a profound, terrifying defeat. His empire, built on lies, betrayal, and ruthless ambition, was crumbling before his very eyes, exposed by the very daughter he had disowned. He screamed denials, guttural and desperate, but his words were lost in the rising clamor, drowned out by the undeniable weight of the evidence. His hand-picked board members, their faces now contorted with a mixture of shock and dawning fear for their own complicity, stared at the ledgers, their whispers turning into frantic accusations against Silas. They knew the immense legal ramifications. The revelation, meticulously live-streamed by Mr. Dawson to a growing, horrified audience, exploded across the city. Journalists watching from their offices gasped, then scrambled, their phones ringing off the hook. City officials, initially skeptical, watched in stunned silence, and tenants from the demolished building, gathered around screens in community centers, erupted in shouts of outrage, then a roar of furious vindication. The dramatic irony was absolute. The ruthless landlord, who had evicted his own daughter from her home and publicly branded her a failure, was now brought down by her, using the very legacy he had tried to destroy. The media frenzy was unprecedented, a public spectacle of justice finally served. A new dawn for Sterling, a legacy of justice. The immediate aftermath of Gabriel Thorne's dramatic revelation at the Legacy Gala was immediate and catastrophic for the Thorne empire. Alistair Thorne, stripped bare of his carefully constructed facade, was arrested on the spot, his desperate cries of imposter quickly silenced by the arriving authorities. Thorne Enterprises faced a massive, swift investigation, with the ledger and the hard drive providing irrefutable evidence of years of intricate fraud, money laundering, and corporate malfeasance related to Project Chimera. The company's stock plummeted, its assets were frozen, and within weeks, the once unassailable empire crumbled into bankruptcy, facing countless lawsuits from ruined pension holders and poisoned communities. Alistair Thorne, once the epitome of unchecked power, was now a broken man, facing a lifetime behind bars. Julian Thorne, his life of inherited entitlement shattered, spiraled into public disgrace. His frantic denials at the gala, captured by the swarming media, made him a figure of ridicule. While he wasn't directly implicated in the deepest layers of his father's schemes, his reckless ignorance and complicity in the cover-up meant he faced minor charges for obstruction and conspiracy. He lost his vast inheritance, his social standing dissolved, and his name, once synonymous with glamour, became a byword for arrogance and failure. He vanished from the public eye, his gilded life reduced to ashes. For Gabriel, the immediate aftermath was a whirlwind of legal proceedings and complex investigations. He worked tirelessly with authorities, his eidetic memory proving invaluable in disentangling the intricate web of deceit woven by his father. He meticulously helped identify victims, trace hidden assets, and dismantle the corrupt structures Alistair had built. He sought no personal gain from the recovered assets, instead ensuring that they were directed towards restitution for the victims and environmental cleanup efforts for the affected communities. However, a small hidden fund, ethically established by his late mother years ago, a quiet act of foresight against her husband's potential corruption, now became accessible to Gabriel. He used these funds not for luxury, but as the seed capital for a new, ethical financial venture focused on transparency and social good, a direct antithesis to his father's legacy. He deliberately retained a quiet, dignified life, actively avoiding the spotlight, his purpose driven by justice, not fame. One crisp autumn morning, Gabriel met Maria, the cleaner he had helped, in a small, quiet cafe, far from the echoes of Thorne Tower. Maria, her eyes wide with a mixture of awe and concern, spoke hesitantly. "Mr. Thorne, Gabriel, what you did, it was incredible. But are you okay? After all of it?" Gabriel smiled faintly, a genuine, if weary, expression. "It was necessary, Maria. The secrets, the lies, they were poisoning everything. My family's legacy, the city, even me." He took a sip of his coffee. "For years, I told myself I was just observing, protecting myself, but deep down, I knew I had to act. It was a burden, keeping those secrets. Now it's a different kind of burden, but a lighter one. The weight of truth." He looked at Maria, recognizing her quiet integrity, the same genuine compassion he had seen the night she had taken food for her family. "Maria," he said, his voice firm with purpose, "I'm starting a new venture. a financial consulting firm, but one built on absolute transparency, on helping people, not exploiting them. I need someone I can trust implicitly, someone with a strong moral compass, someone who isn't afraid to see the truth, even the uncomfortable parts. Maria's eyes widened, a flicker of surprise, then profound hope. She had spent years cleaning up after others, literally and figuratively. Now, she was being offered a chance to build something entirely new, something good. I would be honored, Gabriel, she stammered, her voice thick with emotion. She became his first hire for his new venture, her quiet integrity a core value, her lived experience a constant reminder of the human cost of corporate greed. A few months later, a brief, poignant encounter occurred. Gabriel, walking past a soup kitchen during his volunteer work, saw Julian. His younger brother, once immaculately dressed, was now clad in worn, ill-fitting clothes, serving meals to the homeless. Julian looked up. Their eyes met across the crowded room. There was no arrogance, no sneer, only a profound, raw humility in Julian's gaze. He nodded, a small, almost imperceptible gesture of acknowledgement. Gabriel nodded back, a silent understanding passing between them. He offered no words, no judgment, but the unspoken message hung in the air, a chance for true redemption, earned through humility and quiet service, awaited Julian, should he choose it. The ashes of power had indeed sown the seeds of new growth, even in the most unlikely of places. The city, once accustomed to the cold, imposing structures of industry, now embraced a different kind of progress, one built on community and compassion. Amelia Vance, no longer Thorne, but having reclaimed her original family name in honor of her mother's true legacy, was a celebrated CEO. She was renowned globally for her ethical real estate development and her unwavering commitment to community empowerment. Sterling Industries, now stripped of its tarnished past and proudly rebranded as Viridian Homes, a subtle nod to the ethical tech ventures flourishing in this interconnected narrative universe, built sustainable, affordable housing and vibrant community hubs across the nation. Its projects were not just financially successful, they were beacons of social responsibility, demonstrating that profitable growth could go hand in hand with human dignity. The crowning achievement of Amelia's vision was the full restoration of her family's ancestral textile factory. Once a symbol of betrayal and ruin, it now stood magnificently revitalized, not as a profit-driven enterprise, but as a dynamic community arts and vocational training center. Its vast, airy spaces buzzed with creativity. Looms, once silent, now hummed with the creation of beautiful handcrafted fabrics, preserving a forgotten craft. Workshops offered free vocational training in various trades, providing tangible skills and pathways to employment for underprivileged youth and displaced workers. Her children, Leo and Chloe, now thriving teenagers, were actively involved, often volunteering their time, their youthful energy breathing new life into the historic space. Amelia's commitment to paying it forward was etched into the very fabric of her renewed legacy. She established the Thorne Family Legacy Fund, using her mother's maiden name, a tribute to the quiet strength and foresight that had saved them. This powerful non-profit provided comprehensive affordable housing solutions, robust vocational training programs, and critical legal aid for families facing unfair evictions or corporate injustices. She personally mentored young entrepreneurs, guiding them not just in business strategy, but in ethical leadership, emphasizing that true success was measured by positive impact, not just profit. Her own journey, from disowned daughter to ethical titan, served as a powerful inspiration. The story ends on a bright, bustling afternoon. Amelia stood in the main hall of the newly restored ancestral textile factory, its high ceilings and sun-drenched windows creating a cathedral of creativity. The unique archaic symbol from her locket, the stylized textile loom, was now subtly woven into new, vibrant banners adorning the walls, a visual representation of a heritage reclaimed and transformed. She watched as Leo and Chloe, laughing, helped a group of younger children learn the basics of weaving, their hands deftly moving the shuttle. Amelia looked at a framed photo on a nearby table. Her mother, young and vibrant, her eyes filled with a quiet pride. A faint, contented smile touched Amelia's lips. She had not only transformed her family's dark legacy into a beacon of hope, but had woven a brighter, more just future for countless lives, one thread of compassion at a time. If this story stirred your heart, if it reminds you that courage can alter destinies and that light always finds a path even in the deepest darkness, please leave a comment. Share this story with those who need inspiration. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell to never miss our upcoming stories.